Hello, welcome to my channel StuckFiles. Today we will discuss about why it sucks to be a role player. The guy no one notices. You're not the franchise player that you're not the number one option. Hell, you might not even be the third, but you still show up every single night. You hustle, you defend, you sacrifice your stats, your ego, and your minutes all for the team, and you get absolutely nothing in return and no headlines and no highlights, and no interviews after buzzer. Because in today's NBA, if you're not scoring 30, no one gives a damn who you are that you're a role player. And that's one of the worst jobs in basketball. On paper, it sounds like a dream. You're in the league that you're getting. Paid that you're playing the game you love. But behind that smile is a brutal reality. You're always replaceable, always overlooked, and always one bad week away from being traded, benched, or cut entirely. You don't get the spotlight. You don't get the freedom. And when the team fails, you still take the blame. This is the part of basketball no one talks about. The guys who don't light up the scoreboard but carry the weight anyway. The ones who play their heart out only to be forgotten the second the buzzer sounds. This is what it means to be a role player. And this is why it sucks. Section 1. Playing perfect but never being seen. Imagine putting in the work. Every rep, every drill, every sprint. Imagine studying film until 3 a.m., learning every angle, every matchup, just to come off the bench and maybe get 11 minutes. And in those 11 minutes, you have to be perfect, not pretty good, not solid, perfect in O turnovers, in O blown coverages. No missed rotations, because if you screw up once, you're gone, and no one's waiting to give you another shot. That's the pressure every role player lives with. Superstars can have bad nights. They can go 3, 4, 18, and the media will still call it an off game. But if you, the 7th or 8th guy in the rotation, miss 2 shots in a row, you're labeled inconsistent. You're untrustworthy. You're a liability. You don't get grace. You get replaced. And even when you do everything right, no one notices. You chase shooters through 5 screens. You rotate on defense like your life depends on it. You pass up an open shot to swing it to the hot hand. And when the buzzer sounds, the fans aren't chanting your name. They don't even remember you played. Your stat line says 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 steal. But it won't show that you held a 20-point score to just 6. T won't show the screens you set that freed up 2 corner threes. T won't show the hustle, the heart, or the pain you carried through every possession. Because you're not supposed to be the story that you're just supposed to be solid are reliable, forget able. And that's the twisted part. The better you do your job, the less people remember you were there. When the team wins, the star gets the credit. When the team loses, you better believe the rotation guys catch the blame and one blames the all-star for not playing defense. They blame the guy who played 15 minutes and didn't hit a corner 3. It's a brutal system. You get judged on the smallest mistakes and ignored for your biggest contributions, that you're the guy who always does what's asked and never gets asked how you're doing. And still, you keep going. Because you're not in it for the fame that you're in it, because you love the game. Because deep down, you still believe that being part of something bigger is worth it. But that belief, it fades, especially when you're doing everything right and still feel invisible. Section 2. Always one bad game away from being replaced. The scariest part about being a role player, you're never safe, that you're not just fighting for minutes, that you're fighting for survival. Every single game. Because all it takes is one bad night, point 1 missed rotation. 1 turnover in crunch time, point 1 coach's gut feeling. And suddenly, you're out of the lineup, out of the rotation, out of the team's future, gone. And in the NBA, opportunities don't come often. You might only get 3 minutes in the second quarter. SO if you're cold, if you're nervous, if your timing's just off that night. Too bad. You might not touch the floor again for a week. There are no second chances at the bottom of the roster. The margin for error is razor thin, and the list of guys waiting to take your spot, endless. Young talent, hungry veterans, overseas studs, G League grinders that they're all watching, waiting. And management, they don't hesitate that you're a contract, a number, a body in the system that if you don't produce immediately, they'll find someone else who might. And here's the brutal irony. Sometimes getting replaced has nothing to do with performance. You might be playing your role perfectly, doing the dirty work, keeping the locker room tight. But if the front office wants to make space for a trade or clear cap or shake things up, you're the easiest piece to move, that you're cheap, that you're expendable, that you're invisible in the box score, that you're not a star, so fans won't write that you're not a rookie. So no one will cry potential. You're just gone. Look at the league every year. Guys like Torrey Craig, Jay Crowder, DeLon Wright, solid players that do their job, but bounced around from team to team like loose change. Not because they failed, but because that's what happens when you don't have leverage. And that instability, it eats at you. You could be having dinner with your family and get a call. You've been traded. You pack up. You move. New team. New coach. New system. Start over. Again and again and again. And the clock's always ticking. Because the league never stops getting younger. Every draft class brings new bodies. Every summer league shows new flashes, and every team is looking for the next cheap contributor who can do what you do. Only younger, faster, and cheaper. There's no comfort in stability. Just pressure so you keep grinding. Keep pretending like you're fine. Because if you slip, if you show that the pressure is getting to you, that's another strike against you that you're expected to. Be able, consistent, mentally unshakable. Even if your career is hanging by a thread that you're expected to come in cold off the bench and hit a shot like you've been playing for 30 minutes that you're expected to guard a guy who's already dropped 25 without even breaking a sweat, that you're expected to stay ready, stay humble, stay grateful. Even when the system you're in doesn't give a damn about you. You know what makes it worse? There's no way to win. If you shoot too little, you're not aggressive enough. If you shoot too much, you're playing out of your role. If you try to create, you're doing too much. If you don't, you're not helping the offense. Every move you make is being watched, judged, critiqued, but almost never appreciated. And that's what separates the stars from the role players. Stars get room to grow. You get evaluated game by game, minute by minute, possession by possession. It's exhausting. You live in a state of constant audition, and even if you do everything right, you're still just one bad game away from being replaced. Section 3. You don't get to dream. Every kid who picks up a basketball has the same dream. Be the one game winner in their hands. Crowd chanting their name. Posters on bedroom walls. MVP. All-star. Champion. But when you become a role player in the NBA, that dream dies quietly in a funeral. No ceremony, just silence. Because you don't get to chase greatness that you're told to stay in your lane, be efficient. Be invisible. Be useful that you're not allowed to want more, that you're not supposed to ask for more minutes. Not supposed to ask for more touches. Not supposed to imagine what your game could be if you had the green light, because you never will. Even if you killed in college. Even if you were that guy in high school. Once you're in the league as a role player, that's who you are now. Not because you're not talented, but because the system decided that's all they need from you. Need proof? Look at Jeremy Lin when he finally got his chance during Linsanity. He showed the world he could be a star. And still, just a year later, he was back to being a backup. Not because his talent vanished, but because the league wasn't interested in letting him evolve. He had stepped outside his assigned box, and they closed it shut. Same story for guys like Austin Rivers, Spencer Dinwiddie, Monty Morris, players who clearly have more in their bag. But the second they try to show it, they're told to sit down, fall back, play your role. And that phrase, play your role, it sounds like strategy, but for a lot of guys, it's a prison sentence, because the longer you play within that box, the harder it becomes to break out of it. You become the 3-and-D guy, or the energy guy, or the locker room vet. Labels that sound harmless, but trap you into a version of yourself that you never chose. And even if you dream bigger, the system doesn't that you'll never be the featured option. They won't build an offense around you. The touches will always be limited, and your role will always be conditional. Even your off-season isn't yours. While stars work on new moves, new counters, new skills, you're drilling corner threes and defensive slides. Because that's all they'll let you do, that you're not evolving, that you're maintaining, that you're not chasing greatness, that you're holding your place. And slowly, that changes you. You stop thinking about what you could be and start settling for what you have to be. You bury the killer instinct. You kill your creativity. You silence the dreamer inside you. Because in this league, there's no room for dreaming at your level. You become a professional role player, reliable, predict-able, replace-able. And the worst part, no one asks how that feels, and no one wonders what it's like to still love the game, but realize the game doesn't love you back. You show up, you do your job, and deep down, the dream you once had, it's not just out of reach. It was never yours to begin with. Section 4. The mental toll no one talks about. They tell you to stay ready, to be professional, to accept your role and play it with pride. But no one talks about what that role actually does to your mind. Because being a role player isn't just physically demanding, it's emotionally suffocating. You're always on alert. Point one mistake from being pulled, point one missed shot from riding the bench, point one new signing from becoming IR relevant. And through all of it, you're not allowed to break. That you're expected to smile through the silence, clap from the bench, cheer louder for the guys who are taking the opportunities you once dreamed of. You show up early, you stay late, and still when game time comes, your name doesn't get called. You sit, and you wonder, what more do I have to do? But you can't ask that out loud, because then you're selfish. You're not a team guy. You're bad for the locker room. So you bottle it up, the frustration, the anxiety, the feeling that you're wasting away in plain sight. And that's when the cracks start to show. Some guys lose confidence completely. They start hesitating on open shots they've hit their whole lives. They stop looking for their own offense, afraid they'll get benched for stepping out of line. They play scared, timid, mechanical. And in this league, the second you start thinking instead of playing, you're cooked. The mental side eats you alive. You start comparing, watching guys with half your work ethic get twice the opportunity. Watching players you beat out in training camp get more minutes because they were a higher draft pick. Watching the media hype up players who never had to fight the way you've had to. And worst of all, you start blaming yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this is as far as I'll ever go. But even then, you have to keep showing up, keep saying the right things, keep working, even when it feels like no one notices, no one cares, and nothing will ever change. Some nights you go home questioning everything, not just your game, your identity, because this isn't just a job. This was your dream, and it's slowly becoming your burden. No one sees that pain. Not the fans, not the media, not even your teammates sometimes. They just see another name on the rostered, and other guy taking up a bench seat, and other face in a jersey who might be gone tomorrow. And the mental toll of being that invisible, that disposable for that long, it changes you. You start detaching, not just from the game, but from yourself. You stop celebrating small wins. You stop feeling proud of the grind. You become numb, because if you let yourself feel everything, you might not survive it. That's why so many role players fall out of love with the game. Not because they don't care anymore, but because caring hurts too much. Because every time they give their all, it still isn't enough. And in a league that only sees stars and stats, your struggle is just background noise. Section 5. When you finally snap, there's only so much silence a man can take. Only so much pretending. Only so many times you can nod and say whatever the team needs when deep down you're drowning to tee some point, you snap. Sometimes it's quiet. You stop showing up early, you stop staying late. You go through the motions, give 60% and dare someone to call you out. Other times it's loud. You argue with the coach in practice. You throw a towel on the bench. You roll your eyes during film. You stop, clapping for teammates. And the second you do that, you're the villain. Suddenly, everything is your fault that you're a bad influence. You've got a bad attitude. You're not a team first guy. No one ever asks what pushed you there. They just judge you for reacting. Because in this league, role players aren't allowed to feel that they're not allowed to crack. They're supposed to be perfect soldiers. Grind quietly. Obey always. But even Thule, even the strongest soldiers break under fire. Look at Patrick Beverly, a role player who had to yell, scream, fight, claw, and talk trash just to be noticed. People called him annoying. They mocked him. But deep down, that was the only way he could survive. WY turning pain into energy. WY making himself unforgettable, even if it meant being hated or take Draymond Green. He's one of the most successful role players of all time. But to get there, he had to force the lead to respect him. Be why becoming loud, aggressive, unapologetic. Because if he didn't, he would have just been another undersized forward with no jump shot. Forgotten? Not every player chooses that route. Some internalize it. They get quiet, withdrawn, and over time, they lose their edge. That's the silent collapse. They start fading out of the league. Not because they got worse, but because they got tired. Tired of doing everything right and still being overlooked. Tired of being told next year might be your chance. Tired of staying ready for nothing. And here's the cruel twist. When you do break down, the league uses that against you. They label you emotional. They say you can't handle pressure. They tell other teams you're not dependable. And just like that, you're out. All because you finally reacted to being treated like you didn't matter. It's a no-win situation that if you stay quiet, you get buried. That if you speak up, you get blamed. If you try to evolve, you're not staying in your role. If you accept your role, you disappear to oh, what do? You survive. You find your own reasons to keep going. Your own ways to fight back. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Because no one is coming to save you. N01 is handing you the keys. N01 is offering you the spotlight. If you want to last in this league as a role player, you have to build your own fire. You have to create purpose in thankless minutes. You have to find joy in doing the jobs no one celebrates. But the reality is most don't make it. They get chewed up by the system, spit out, forgotten. And the few who do survive, they're not just tough physically, they're mentally indestructible. Because it takes a different kind of strength to keep showing up for a game that refuses to see you. As we deeply discussed everything in 5 sections, so now you know. The ghosts who keep the game alive, final. So, why does it suck to be a role player? Because you give everything and still live in the shadows. Because your job is to make other people look great while no one even learns your name. Because when you finally ask for more, they act like you changed, like you forgot your place. But here's the truth. The NBA doesn't run on superstars. It runs on the quiet ones, the grinders, the defenders, the glue guys, the professionals who do the dirty work night after night with zero applause, the ghosts of the game. Guys like Bruce Bowen, Thabo Cephalosha, Derek Fisher, Robert Horry, players who won rings without ever hearing their names chanted in the streets. They weren't flashy, they weren't famous, but they were necessary. That's what people don't get. Role players hold the whole system together. They take the hits. They fill the gaps. They give up dreams so others can live theirs. And maybe that's the hardest part of all. Not the minutes, not the stats, not the pressure. It's the fact that you'll never get credit for everything you sacrifice. Because when the buzzer sounds and the banner is raised, they'll remember the MVP, that they'll celebrate the superstar. But the role player, He walks off the court quietly, unnoticed, uncelebrated, and still, he'll show up again tomorrow, ready to do it all over again, for the love of the game that never loved him back.